We're about to be in the service for Mrs. Weiner. Want to welcome all of you here at the chapel as well as the many people that are viewing the service remotely. Just a gentle reminder, if you're present here at the chapel, if you have a cell phone with you, please place it in the silent mode or turn it off completely. That would be appreciated. It's all right. The interment will take place at Memorial Park Cemetery in Skokie. For those cars that are joining our procession, we'll make sure that we have flags on top of your vehicles as well as a safety sticker for inside your windshield. And just keep in mind, use your bright headlights and your emergency flashers at all times while in procession. And then the Shiva will be at the Weiner residence at 136 Avon Road in Northbrook, and will begin immediately following the interment until 6 p.m. today. Services will be officiated by Rabbi Wendy Geffen from North Shore Congregation Israel in Glencoe. Thank you.
So before we turn to words of tradition that invite us into a pathway for grieving, let's just take a minute to bring Marcine to us here. And to do that, we can look at this stunning photograph of her. We were sharing just a moment ago that people were trying to guess the age of Marcine in this photo. And as you know, as all of us who knew Marcine know, she was stunningly beautiful, always. And so while one might think, oh, this is a person maybe in their late 60s in this photo, she was 88. 88? Yeah, 88 at Laura's wedding in this photo, right? So just to kind of speak to the eternality, the eternal neshama, the brightness, the illuminating soul that was Marcine Weiner, and that will remain Marcine Weiner for us, all of those of us who were lucky enough to know her. Let's just allow her presence, our memories of her, the best parts of who she was that made her so precious to so many. Let's let that be with us here together in this space, whether we're here physically or joining online. The rabbis of Jewish tradition teach that a person should greet everyone with something called sever panim yafot, which is translated in a lot of different ways. It basically means literally, not literally, but essentially colloquially, a bright smile, but it implies a deeper sense of when someone greets you, that they see you, they know you, they give a sense of affirmation through their eyes and their smile when you are lucky enough to face their countenance. And we can see Marcine's sever panim yafot here so beautifully. And so it is as we remember her this day, as we grieve her loss, that we will also be grateful. Be grateful for having known her. Be grateful for how our lives are better because of her presence in it. And also to now be grateful as we become carriers of her memories and her legacy. And so it is that we turn to voices of our tradition to guide us as we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, as they say, together. The 23rd Psalm. Adonai ro'i lo echsar, bino deshayar bitseni ame menuchot yanahaleni nashi yeshovev, yancheni b'ma'ag le'tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech begetz halmavet lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha hema yanachamuni, ta'aroch lifanai shulchan neged sororai dishanta vashemen roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yamei chayai, v'shavti beveit Adonai le'orech yamim. These words of the 23rd Psalm that I've just said in Hebrew have been a source of comfort to so many throughout the ages, and they, of course, are associated with grieving. But if you listen and know their meaning, they also speak of this attitude that Marcine was able to cultivate throughout her life. One of seeing her cup overflowing, one of seeing good always, and being grateful always. And so I'll invite us to join together aloud in the English. You have it on the inside page of the pamphlet you received. And as you read these words, as familiar as they might be, again, the invitation to bring Marcine with us. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The 90th Psalm. Adonai ma'on ata hayita lanu bedor vador, b'terem harim yuladu vatcholel eretz v'tevel, ume olam ad olam ata'el. O God, you have been our refuge in every generation. Before the mountains came into being, before you brought forth the earth and the world, from eternity to eternity, you are God. You return us to dust. You decree, return, you mortals, for in your sight 1,000 years are as yesterday when it's past, a watch in the night. The span of our life is 80 years and 10, or given strength 80 years. But the best of those years pass by speedily, and we are left in darkness. So teach us, God, to number our days that we might attain a heart of wisdom. Turn to us, show mercy to us, satisfy us at daybreak with your love, that we might sing for joy all our days. Let your deeds be seen by your servants, your glory by their children. May your favor, O God, be upon us. Establish the work of our hands, that it might long endure. And some more modern words. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing. It is a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me. Your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. It is a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death can touch. In determining what makes a good person, the Talmud recounts a conversation in which the following question is explored. The rabbis ask, what is the very best trait for a good person to possess? One rabbi teaches that we should strive to have a kind eye, to see the best in everyone and everything. Another says we should aim to be a good friend. Still another says we should aim to be a good community member. Both, of course, with the understanding that being able to have meaningful relationships matters. Still another says we should strive to act with care and concern for others. And then a final rabbi says we should strive to have a lev tov, a good heart. And this is the trait the Talmud selects as the very best one for a person to possess, because it, of course, includes all the other traits in it as well. All of us here are lucky to have known Marcine, to have our lives touched by her, and we all know and understand the truth of this axiom, as she was its exemplar. It was her lev tov, her very good heart, that showed itself over and over again in her kind, bright eyes, her enormous and joyous smile, her caring and vivacious spirit that made her an incredibly devoted friend, neighbor, and community member. This woman who was so dedicated to those she cared for, taught, loved, the profound source of inspiration that she was and always will be for the countless she touched along the path of her very full life. Marcine was born in April of 1927 in Akron, Ohio, to her parents, Solomon and Celia, with her younger brother, Nate, coming along a bit later. Though her parents were not wealthy, the family was able to live comfortably for the most part. Marcine was raised in a lovely home filled with the smells of her mom's delicious cooking and baking, growing up surrounded by a large family, aunts, uncles, cousins, all located nearby. There were challenges during the Depression, but these challenges modeled for Marcine the power of community and how people have the ability to help to lift one another up, a value that Marcine always lived by. It was no surprise that after high school, Marcine headed to Ohio State, truly a shared family-wide destination and passion, to earn her teaching degree. Because if ever there was a person who was meant to be a teacher, it was Marcine. Outside of a 4-year hiatus to be at home with Neil when he was a baby and toddler, Marcine taught as an early elementary school teacher until her retirement in 1989, spending nearly 3 decades of that time at Hillside Elementary School in Hastings-on-Hudson. She earned her master's degree along the way at Hunter College as well. Not surprisingly, every student loved Mrs. Weiner. Even recently, Marcine would still get calls and emails from her students who truly adored her. In fact, one of her students, who went on to become a renowned American sports and political commentator and writer, wrote just this weekend of Marcine. "I've never encountered a teacher who got a greater compliment than Mrs. Weiner received in the summer of 1964. Her entire first grade class, students and teachers, asked if she could teach them again in the second grade. I was the lone addition to the incumbent class, and she managed not only to make me feel at home within 20 minutes, but imagine what faced her, having me suddenly appear as I did a month or so into the school year. She was a wonderful, patient, relentlessly happy teacher and person. She modeled the power of what a teacher can do and be for their students." But beyond her teaching degree, Ohio State would also provide for Marcine the encounter that would change the course of her life for the better forever. So at Ohio State, at a Hillel dance, Marcine was dancing with a suitor. One Art Weiner spotted her and knew he had to cut in, declaring, and I believe these were your exact words, Art, "I'll give you a better dance." And that he did. It took some persistence in the beginning, but in short order, the two were going steady. Together through the rest of college, they married on September 4th, 1949 in the JCC in Akron. They honeymooned at Beatley's on the Lake, a couple hours drive away, returning back to Akron to stay at Marcine's parents' house for a bit until Art got his first position in Newport News. There, they lived in a house right on the ocean. Later, an opportunity arose with Marcine's uncle in housewares manufacturing, so the couple made their way to Taunton, Mass. They bought a home in Raynham. Neil was born. The family was complete. When the new business began in New York, Art commuted back and forth for a couple years before the family made their move there. eventually settling in Hastings-on-Hudson, a place that really represented the heart of their life and family. They built a beautiful house with its idyllic backyard that Marcine and Art designed, planted, gardened, and nourished with their own hands at 19 Jordan Road. This was truly their home. No matter the location, their home was always an open one, open to family and friends. Everyone who knows Marcine knows she never met a stranger. And wherever it is that they were, life was good. Better stated, wonderful, because surely Marcine would have said that. Together, Art and Marcine were very social. They had so many friends they cultivated and maintained from every phase of their lives, from their sorority and fraternity days in college to friends from every place they lived. Marcine and Art were full of life and lively, always going out every weekend night. Later, they would travel the world with these friends. They loved them all, and all those friends really loved Art and Marcine in return. In Art's words, he and Marcine were the perfect matchup. They shared similar backgrounds, the same likes and dislikes, and altogether a truly wonderful and loving relationship. Art made a point of sharing that he and Marcine made a commitment to never go to sleep carrying any issues, to always make sure to sort things out so they never went to bed angry. As Art shared this the other day, Neil and Debbie joked that the truth of the matter was that Art and Marcine never fought or were never angry with one another ever anyway, so that was a promise that was easily kept. The truth was, they were always holding hands. They just loved to be together. There was never a dull conversation. It must be said that in these more recent years, when Marcine was at Whitehall and Art still on Avon, that Art was there with Marcine all the time, just being together, showing her pictures, spending time with one another. Their presence and love as a couple never dwindled. And rather than worrying about herself and what she was going through, which was a lot, Marcine was always worried about her Artie. Their mutual devotion was truly unmatched. September 4th, Marcine and Art would have celebrated their 76th wedding anniversary. Notably and so powerfully, when I asked Neil to describe his relationship with his mom the other day, he shared that she was always present, never smothering. She adored him, but gave him his own space because she respected him as a whole person. Neil has many vivid childhood memories, in particular from the time that Marcine was home with him, early childhood memories of their shared times and experiences, which undoubtedly set the foundation for their strong connection. Whether listening to Marcine on the record player, to the recorded messages Art would send on to him while he was working in New York, and then the two of them crying together because they missed Art so much, or driving with Marcine from Taunton to the Providence train station to pick Art up when he would come home for the weekend. Neil also remembers how Marcine, typically so non-judgmental and measured, would watch the McCarthy hearings and yell out, forgive me, that McCarthy was a son of a bitch. Catalyzing that expression, as legend has it, one of Neil's first verbal articulations as well. Neil was so devoted to Marcine, always, and always admired his mom, not just for what she did, but for who she was. We'll hear from Neil in a few moments as well. As a mother-in-law to Debbie, Marcine was just the best. Debbie's introduction to Neil's parents happened as a surprise one night when Neil and Debbie hitchhiked from Boston to New York and showed up at Marcine and Art's door by surprise. Marcine was nevertheless thrilled to meet her. She was always accepting, sweet, positive. She was devoted to Debbie, as Debbie was to her. And in truth, Debbie was really Marcine's daughter. No in-law descriptor needed. And as we all know, truly the most wonderful gift for both Marcine and Art arrived when they became grandparents to Laura and to Melissa. Because Marcine and Art moved to Northbrook while the girls were growing up, they were able to spend time together. Nani was a fixture in their lives. The girls loved coming to the house on Avon. Anytime when they were sick, Marcine and Art would take care of them. Marcine and Art took the girls on special trips after each bat mitzvah. Laura to London, Paris, and Rome, Melissa to Israel. Marcine was a fixture, not just in their lives, but in the lives of their friends. She was known as the coolest grandmother, admired and loved by her granddaughter's friends too, for her timelessness, her open mind, an accepting nature, and of course, her contagious smile. She and Art were at every event, recital, game, performance. They were there for the graduations, and they were there for the weddings too. What a blessing. Marcine and Art were real role models for Laura and Melissa for what love looks like. They both felt so seen and known by their grandparents in every way, and there is no greater blessing than that. Marcine loved Jason and Zach too, as each of them really came to see Marcine and Art as their own grandparents. Marcine always wanted to know about their lives, not just in relation to her granddaughters, but about them as independent, whole people too. And the fact that Marcine and Art received the blessing of being great-grandparents to Nate, to Vivi, to Gwen, to Caroline and Grayson, well, this was just the icing on the cake. And over these more difficult years in Whitehall, Marcine would just delight in any opportunity to spend time with or look at photo drops of the great-grandchildren. This lit up everything for her. Marcine was always deeply committed to community and being of service. Beyond her role as a teacher, she was active in the PTA. She was a Hebrew school teacher in many of the places where she lived as well. Judaism was so important to Marcine, as was Jewish community. When she and Art moved to the North Shore, they truly made their place at NSCI. And although it was Neil and Debbie's temple, it truly became Marcine and Art's as well. Together, they participated in so many volunteer projects, always helping to make our world a better place. Marcine was active in Minyan, our legacy letters group. She herself served on the board of trustees for 8 years. She became an adult bat mitzvah and the featured speaker at Yom Kippur's This Is My God one year. I speak on behalf of all of my clergy colleagues who have been lucky enough to know Marcine Weiner to say that we all share a profound adoration and respect for Marcine, who always went out of her way to make each of us feel seen by her, not just as her clergy, but as whole humans too. And she and Art together were and will always remain fixtures of our NSCI community. Marcine was beautiful, inside and out. She was a force, on top of everything always, positive and upbeat. She had so much energy. She saw the world through a lens of beauty and optimism, delighting in the outdoors and in nature. She volunteered at the Botanic Gardens for many years, and she was an avid bird watcher too. She could literally be seen just walking around and singing, declaring what a wonderful day it was outside. And though her technical age was significant, it must be said that Marcine was never, ever old. She was and always will be eternal. And she lived a life that was wonderful, in which, as Art shared, they did everything, traveled everywhere, and had so much for which to be grateful. We will remember Marcine for so many of the qualities that made her the incredible person she was. For her ability and willingness to see the goodness and best in everyone, save a few modern politicians, they weren't on that list, but everyone else was. For her nurturing of friendships and dedication to community, for her zest for life, her integrity, her warmth, her humor, and of course, for her abiding love for those for whom she cared the most, all of which came together in the good, good heart of this good, good soul, whose memory will undoubtedly be only for blessing for generations to come. We'll hear now from Neil. I don't know how to make this tall enough for Neil.
want to thank all of you for being here today to share memories and honor my mother, Marcine Weiner. I especially want to thank Rabbi Wendy Geffen for officiating. Rabbi Geffen has been with our families during our happiest times, officiating at the weddings of Laura and Jason and Zach and Melissa, and the baby namings of each of our 5 beautiful grandchildren. Nate, Vivi, Gwen, Callie, and Grayson. Now I'd like to, given the excitement that my mom did make it to 98 years old, an amazing number, I'd like to ask my grandchildren, Nate and Vivi Grover, to come up here with me. They are going to count backwards from 98, which was the age of their bubby at their passing. Nate is in the 3rd grade, and Vivi just started 1st grade. I hear from Laura and Jason that Nate and Vivi are excellent students in mathematics. And I hope that counting backwards is something they've learned in school. Okay, kids, we're going to start at 98 and count back slowly, okay?
98, 97, 96, 95, 94, 93, 92, 91, 90.
Okay, we got the idea. Okay, thank you very much.
That was impressive.
Now, the reason I wanted us all to experience counting backwards is because in the last few weeks, I have had terrible insomnia. Most nights, I've barely gotten a moment of sleep. Lying in bed, thinking about my mother's suffering and approaching death. Like others inflicted by insomnia, for help, I turned to the internet for a remedy. One suggestion caught my eye. Start at 99 and count back to 0. The idea is that the process of counting back is so tedious and boring that the mind is calmed and enables the insomnia sufferer to fall asleep. 98, 97, 96, I won't go any further. Now, I tried this method, and it didn't work for me. Instead, lying in bed late at night with my mind in turmoil, counting backwards from 99, I was thinking how incredibly long my mother had lived. But then I realized that I have lived for 70% of the span of my mother's life, and my own time on earth seems to have gone so fast. Now, Rabbi Geffen has done an incredible job of synthesizing my mom's life. Aside from my father, as Marcine's only child, I am the person who knew her best. What can I offer friends and relatives who loved and knew my mother to help them understand her better? Sadly, the reality of my world over the last 4 years has been to be a firsthand witness to my mother's decline from strength to weakness and finally death. I haven't been alone in this experience. My loving wife, Debbie, has been with me throughout this difficult period. Debbie, my father, and I celebrated at the nursing home the last 4 of my mother's birthdays, bringing a cake to her bedside and singing happy birthday. On her last birthday, her 98th, Mom laughed when I told her it was a pleasure for me to grow old with her. I'm indebted to Debbie for the strength and compassion she has demonstrated. Debbie loved my mother as she loved her own mother and was with me every step in the way during the difficult years of Marcine's decline. Marcine's granddaughters, Laura and Melissa, brought joy to her during this period with their visits and phone calls. Their spouses, Jason and Zach, were always loving and attentive to my mom, and she regarded them as her own grandchildren. Of course, the hero of my mother's life, right up to her last breath, was my father. To capture Arthur's love for Marcine would challenge the most gifted author. Arthur was concerned every minute of his life that his darling wife was getting proper care. He spent countless hours sitting at her bedside, holding her hand, speaking with her about whatever he thought she would like to talk about. Showing her pictures of her grandchildren and great-grandchildren, which my mother loved to look at and discuss each one with him. So in this time of loss, I get strength from realizing and appreciating the love and courage that Debbie and my father showed in dealing with the sadness of my mother's situation. But I also get strength from how Marcine herself showed the same courage and optimism during her final 4 years that had caused all of us to love and adore her during her first 94 years. Despite being bedbound and dependent on caregivers, Marcine was optimistic. Right until the last few days of her life, she found joy in her everyday interactions with family, visitors, and the Whitehall staff. She truly cared about other people, and she remembered conversations and details about the lives of people who were around her. Last night, one of my mom's friends called me and told me she had been with my mom in a class at the temple several years ago where the participants wrote memoirs about their life. I called my dad, and he in fact had my mother's book of memoirs on his bedside table. Here is an excerpt in her own words. Here I am, the ripe old age of old age. I admit that my biggest vice is sometimes being a little late for things. Dinner, a party, tea, a meeting or lecture, occasionally, that is. But I am a stickler for rules. I never cut in front of anyone in line. I never talk at lectures or music events. I never interrupt people when they are talking, well, almost never. I try to help the needy and the elderly. I try to keep the conversation on subject and listen to what the other person has to say. I do not tell secrets, and I am very dependable. I have been this way for a very long time. Memories of happy times about my mother, which come so easily to others, are today so hard for me to grasp. This is because a cloud of sadness overwhelms me. In time, I know that this cloud will dissipate. Happy memories of my mother will return, and with them, the life lessons she taught me since I was a little boy will again help guide my life. Always be optimistic, be caring and loving to others, be courageous in hard times. I love you, Mom, and I will miss you forever.
That was so beautiful. If you're able, would you please rise? El Malay Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Tachat Kanafei HaShechina, Im Kedoshimu Tehorim Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Malka Bat Shmuel, Shelcha Leolama, Baal Harachamim, Yaster Reha Beseter Kenafecha Leolamim, Vitzror Bitzror Chaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Hu Nachalata, Tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkava, V'nomar, Amen. May the source of life, the fountain of all being, open our hearts to compassion and our eyes to wisdom, that we might glimpse in perfect peace the way of all things. May Marcine's memory be for us a blessing, and may we never let the light of her love grow dim in our hearts. May we remember all her worthy and righteous deeds, that her memory be forever bound up in the bond of life. May Marcine's death awaken us to this truth, that the bond of love we shared and share could never be severed in sorrow. May she always rest in peace. We say together, Amen.
This does conclude this service. If you are going to the